Welcome, one and all, to another episode of Pacific414 episode review. I'm your host, Mike, and in this live episode, I am going to be talking about episode number 16, the season finale of The Bad Batch. And the Bad Batch season finale, well, as you can see on the screen, it was titled Kamino Lost, and there's a good reason because this episode begins right where last week's episode Return to Kamino left off. And I'm going to be giving away some spoilers in this review, and I'm going to try not to give away the whole plot line of what went on in this episode for anyone who hasn't seen it, so just keep that in mind. Anyways, let's get underway, shall we? In this episode, it picks up right where last week's episode left off with Admiral Rampart's Imperial Star Cruiser and two other Star Cruisers bombarding Kamino from their laser cannons and trapping the Bad Batch. And we pick up with the Bad Batch hanging on for dear life as the structure is starting to collapse around them. It's actually starting to flood at this point. Omega and Crosshairs are trapped in one room when the doors automatically seal them off. They're watertight doors, so think of, the Titanic. If you ever read anything on the Titanic, how it had watertight doors and that they were supposed to be activated if the ship were to take on water. Of course, we all know the fate of the Titanic. But anyways, the watertight doors engaged, separating Omega and Crosshairs from Wrecker, Tech, Echo, and Hunter. And another member that was trapped with Omega and Crosshairs is AZ. So what ends up happening is water is flooding that compartment. Crosshairs has his head barely above water, and he's trying to keep his head above water. Of course, the water is coming in so quickly. He's submerged. AZ and Omega try to break Crosshairs loose, and the other guys, well, they're on the other side, and they're trying to open up the door from the other side so they can free Omega and Crosshairs along with AZ. So you have Wrecker using his bayonet knife, and he's trying to open up the door. They're all trying to help him open up the door. Omega, at one point, trying to free Crosshairs, goes below the surface of the water, tries to remove some of the debris and scaffolding that has entrapped Crosshairs to no avail. She uses her bow and arrow and fires 3 shots at the debris to try to break Crosshairs loose. She does manage to break him loose, and at that point, Wrecker and the other guys are able to open up the door, causing the water to flood into that compartment, and of course, sucking Omega, AZ, and Crosshairs out of the room before the door is quickly sealed. There is an exchange between Crosshairs and Hunter, and Crosshairs in this episode is basically getting under Hunter's skin and the rest of the team's skin. They know that they have to find a way to get out of the facility and get back to the Marauder, which is on the secret landing platform that Omega had let everyone know about in the previous episode. So they're making their way to the landing platform, of course, without any power going throughout the facility. Some underwater creatures are able to swim around at their own free will, and they end up attacking the structure. Now, the structure's already in a weakened state, and as a matter of fact, the tubes that they use to travel through in the last episode, well, the glass in those tubes is starting to break under all the pressure of the water and the fact that the structure itself has been violently attacked. So what ends up happening is this creature ends up attacking the tube, and AZ says that the power needs to be restored in order to keep these creatures off of these tubes. So the gang starts making their way through the tube as quickly as possible. AZ plugs himself into one of the control panels, starts twisting and turning the control panel to gain access to the electricity. It ends up working for a brief time, causing the system to overload. The Bad Batch crew, along with Crosshairs, is able to escape, and they find themselves in Nalasin's lab at one point. But there's also, an exchange between Hunter and Crosshairs when Omega comes up with a solution to even get to Nalasin's laboratory and also get to the Marauder and escape. Crosshair says to Hunter at one point in the episode, "So you're letting the kid call the shots now?" I looked at Crosshairs in this episode as being like me, one of the fans going, "Oh, so we're gonna have a kid call a shot throughout this entire series." I mean, I realize Omega's there for a reason, but Crosshairs is pretty much any fan who says, watch shows that has a kid in it and thinking, "Oh, come on, this show would be much better without the kid." Like, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example. Generation 1 Transformers. Generation 1 Transformers had a few human characters, Spike and Sparkplug Witwicky. You had Carly, and then you had their friend Chip Chase, along with a few others throughout the course of the series. Well, after a while, fans just got tired of the human characters, and one of the things fans have always wanted, and we didn't get it until the War for Cybertron series on Netflix, was to have a Transformers series without any human characters. Because for a lot of us, we just want to see the Autobots and Decepticons. Well, in this case, a lot of fans want to see Clone Force 99 go through their day-to-day lives and try to survive with the ever-increasing presence of the Empire. So, Crosshairs pretty much represents us fans with some of the remarks he makes. He even says that Hunter has always allowed people to get under his skin and, take everything, you know, be sensitive is what I'm trying to say. Sensitive about everything when Crosshairs and Hunter are having an exchange about who's loyal to whom, who is doing their duty, who didn't do their duty. And Hunter even brings up the point that, they made a choice to do what they did, and Crosshairs has made his choice to do what he's done. And of course, Crosshairs even insults Wrecker at this point, saying that your small brain can't comprehend what's going on right now. So, Crosshairs is being Crosshairs. But, again, like I said, I also feel that he's speaking for some of his fans that, when we saw Omega, we're thinking, okay, don't let her be an annoying character. And then she starts calling the shots. But, that's just my interpretation. So they get to Nalasin's laboratory where they were all created, including Omega. Of course, it's mentioned again how Omega is actually older than the four clones of Clone Force 99, and they're trying to devise a way to get to the Marauder when they see that the tube system that linked Nalase's lab to the landing platform where the Marauder's at has been destroyed. So they decide, you know what? Let's go into the tubes that we were created in. Reinforce them. They should be able to float to the surface, and we should be able to paddle our way to the Marauder. So they end up setting up some explosives onto the glass, and AZ is tasked with trying to get all the tubes back up to the surface with debris falling down below the surface from all the cities being bombarded and destroyed by the Empire. And the Empire at this point is long gone as they've left the planet. So what ends up happening is once the explosives are set on to the glass and everybody is into position, AZ detonates All the explosives causing the glass to break and water to flood in. The water floods in, of course, causing all the tubes to go out. AZ's having to go back frantically, back and forth to try to catch all the tubes. And another thing that's happening with AZ at this point is he's starting to lose power, and even on reserves, he won't last very long. So, as AZ is trying to help all the tubes, every tube except for the one that Omega is in is able to reach the surface. Why is Omega's tube unable to reach the surface? Well, the reason why is because with AZ losing power, AZ eventually stops functioning, and Omega says to Hunter that she's going after AZ to rescue him. Of course, Hunter advises her not to, and Omega willfully ignores. So what ends up happening is she gets out of her tube and starts going after AZ. The current is too strong for her. She starts to struggle and starts to pass out. Then at that point on the surface, in the pod that Hunter and Crosshairs are in, Crosshair actually takes out his sniper rifle, and the way they make it look like he's pointing it directly at Hunter's head, because that's the feeling they want to give you, is that Crosshairs is taking this opportunity to take out Clone Force 99. No, instead, Crosshairs uses his grappling hook and shoots it off. It goes underwater. It latches on to AZ, and of course, Omega's holding out the AZ, and Crosshairs starts reeling up AZ and Omega to the surface. And, once they get to the surface, Omega, of course, being submerged underwater, is trying to catch her breath. But you see a nice shot in this episode when that happens of Wrecker pointing his blaster directly at Crosshairs, thinking that Crosshairs was gonna take the opportunity, like I said, to take Hunter out and probably take out the rest of Clone Force 99. That doesn't happen. They manage to paddle their way to the landing platform, and once they get to the landing platform, they say, "We better leave soon because the Empire will be sending scouts here shortly." And there is a final exchange between Omega and Crosshairs, and of course, Crosshairs and Hunter. And there was also an exchange earlier in the episode, which I kind of ignored, but it was basically Omega talking to Crosshairs at one point in the laboratory, saying how much Crosshairs didn't like being on Kamino and didn't like being in the lab, considering that's where they were all created. But there's also a beautiful shot before this final exchange even happens of all the remaining clones, Echo, Wrecker, Tech, Hunter, Crosshairs, and Omega. They're standing there on the landing platform and they're looking out into the burning smoke and fire and rubble of what was once a thriving city on Kamino. And once they're home. So what ends up happening is Omega and Clone Force 99 get onto the Marauder. Crosshairs stays back because Crosshairs even mentions in this episode that he will be serving the Empire, a growing Empire, and the Empire is going to need someone like him. So he does not rejoin his brothers, and Omega even says, they're still your brothers. To which Crosshairs crosses his arm and he's all silent. So that was the conclusion of the episode after the Marauder took off, and it leaves a shot of Crosshairs just standing there alone on the platform. And it also concludes season 1 of Star Wars The Bad Batch. Now, what did I think of this episode? I really enjoyed this episode. I especially love the fact that we had an exchange between Crosshairs and Clone Force 99 and Omega, and they pretty much had to say what they had to say, kind of bury the hatchet a little bit. Of course, we know which side Crosshairs is strongly leaning toward and loyal to, and that there's still going to be a lot of tension between Crosshairs and Clone Force 99. As we all know, especially in the first episode, Aftermath, Crosshairs feels that Clone Force 99, at least those that remain, abandoned the Empire. And of course, I know I just said, that was pretty much it for the episode, but it wasn't. Because after, that final exchange, we see a shot on the planet that we were on before. And the previous episode before Return to Kamino. And of course, right now that episode names is escaping me, but it's that one facility where they ended up picking up Gregor. And like I said, the name of the episode's escaping me at this time. I'm sure after I'm finished the live stream, it'll come to me. Oh yeah, Common Ground. Duh. Duh. As a friend of mine used to do. But anyways, we return to the Imperial facility that we saw on Common Ground. And the Imperial shuttle lands. Of course, it's flanked by 2 fighters. And we see clone troopers escape out of the hatch. They're not escaping, they're actually departing the Imperial shuttle. And who do we see? We see Nalase talking to one of the scientists. And that scientist says to her that her efforts are going to be helpful in their next endeavor. So we know that the clone project will probably continue in some way, shape, or form, but we'll have to wait till season 2 to see exactly what's going to be going on. But overall, and I'm sorry for leaving that part out until the last moment, but overall, I enjoyed this episode. I really liked the exchanges between Clone Force 99, Crosshairs, and Omega. I thought they were very poignant to the story, especially with Crosshairs being a loyal soldier of the Empire and viewing his brethren as traitors. And of course, it leaves a lot open. It did leave, some thought as to whether or not at some point Crosshairs will abandon the Empire and eventually join his brothers. No, maybe not. Maybe he's, the Galactic Empire through and through. I'm with him until I die. That kind of deal. But, it did leave it open even during the episode as to whether or not Crosshairs would see that he's fighting a lost cause. And he is fighting on the wrong side to finally join his brothers. But, that remains to be seen. There's still stories to be told. And of course, they more than likely have finished production on season 2. We just have to wait to a release date. Not that I know this information offhand, I'm just speculating here. But, this series, yes, it does have times where it can get annoying with Omega taking charge, but I I do understand where the writers are coming from. I just don't understand why she has to be a kid. That's just me. Unless kid characters are written well, they really don't serve a purpose, in my humble opinion. Not saying that Omega isn't written well. She is written well, so she does serve a purpose. That's why I'm not going to be a hard ass on this one. And, it's not me being soft either. It's me understanding that Omega represents the next evolution of the clone process. And using the technology that was used to create Omega, we can pretty much say for certain that in season 2 they're going to be trying to make more clones that surpass not just Omega, but Clone Force 99 in general. So Am I going to watch season 2 of The Bad Batch? Well, that remains to be seen, as I have canceled my Disney Plus subscription. I mean, well, let's face it. They fired Gina Carano, and The Bad Batch was really the only other thing keeping me from, you know, watching the service until my subscription runs out. And of course, the subscription I signed up for, well, that's for me to know. But I'm sure there are a lot of you who are going, yeah, we know which one you signed up for, Mike. Yeah, but as far as what I'll be reviewing next, I'm going to probably give a one episode review of What If. I just don't know. I really don't know. From what I've heard so far, it's not getting some positive feedback from some circles. Other circles are saying it's good. So it's one of those where I'm going to have to go in on my own and use my own judgment and see it for myself and decide for myself whether it's any good or whether it's, something to skip. But there will be future episodes of Pacific414 episode review. As a matter of fact, in place of Bad Batch, for now, I will be giving my thoughts on anime. It won't be an episode by episode review. I'll talk about a series here and there, but it's not going to be, you know, a review of episode 1, episode 2, so on and so forth. It's just going to be my overall opinion of certain anime series that I've started watching, and if I'm going to continue to watch them, or if I've watched them all the way to a certain point before new episodes drop. So that's the plan for Pacific414 episode review, is just to, keep finding things to review. I mean, sure, I don't do the reviews like everyone else does, and that's pretty much the point of this channel. It's not to be like everyone else, to put my own unique flavor onto it and give you something different to watch, other than, copying and pasting what everyone else does as far as their episode reviews, series reviews, movie reviews, what have you. So, there's things in store for this channel. Future episodes of Pacific 1 movie reviews as well. Of course, the box score, even with the Cubs being in the state that they're in, there will be some episodes of the box score, probably not as frequently as before, just because I'm not too happy with the way, the Cubs are going about all this. And of course, as far as right now, my weekly show of Pop Talk, where I talk about the latest news and pop culture and, try to pick different headlines and different subjects that are being discussed throughout the news in Hollywood and, give my thoughts on it. Or, you know, devote an episode of Pop Talk to a certain movie, certain franchises, and what I like about the franchises, just like I did this last one, talking about, the Suicide Squad box office numbers and the 35th anniversary of Transformers the movie. So, stuff like that is on the horizon for this channel. And if you like what you see here on this channel, I would greatly appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up, or any video a thumbs up, shared this video or any other video, and leave a comment down in the comment section below, as well as subscribe to the Pacific414 YouTube channel. Again, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you'd like to follow me on social media, the links are down in the description below. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this or any other content I put up on this channel, whether it's live or whether it's been recorded and uploaded later on. Just want to say thank you very much. It's appreciated. So, overall, as far as this episode is concerned, it's a great episode. Now, I do want to get on to what I thought of the whole season. As the season kept going on, it seemed like there were more and more filler episodes. more episodes where the Bad Batch would be going on these side quests and not actually gathering more intelligence on what the Empire has established and what has been taken away from the former Republic. And not that I'm against filler episodes, but when you get more than one filler episode, it's like, okay, come on, let's advance the story a little more. And, Omega, my first thought when I saw her was thinking, oh, so she's going to be the kid character. And after watching Aftermath, I didn't think she was going to be an annoying kid character, and she wasn't, but it did get to a point where you can definitely tell where her role was, that her role was going to eventually evolve into the leader of the Bad Batch. Seeing that she's the next generation of clone, she is able to do everything that they can, but all in one package. Unlike, Wrecker, he's the strength. Tech is the brilliant science officer, if you want to even say that, he's the intelligent one. Hunter is the well trained soldier and is able to come up with tactics, track people. Of course, Echo, he's the veteran who has seen a lot during his time in the Clone Wars, seen a lot in his time under Captain Rex. So he's, also been through an ordeal, having been captured and hooked up to a computer system. So he's still recovering from that. But, this series definitely has a lot of potential. And honestly, I don't mind that you're not seeing a whole lot of Jedi in this. I'm not minding that you're not even seeing Darth Vader in this. Their time will come when you see more Jedi in this. It'll be hopefully for a good reason, hopefully for a good plot line in the story, or maybe a season arc. I wouldn't mind you know, another season long arc, but with less filler, if you catch my drift. So, overall, this series isn't a bad series yet. It's really hard for it to step up to the levels of the Clone Wars, especially with the Clone Wars having run for 6 seasons before it was picked up for a seventh season as the absolute finale. And then, there was Rebels. Now, Rebels wasn't bad. It wasn't the Clone Wars, but it wasn't bad. It's definitely watchable. Do I think the Bad Batch can go, 4 seasons, 5 seasons? Possibly. It could possibly go 4 or 5 seasons, but that's completely up to Disney. And, Disney is money hungry right now. If you've been reading some of the headlines, they're money hungry. They want to make the big bucks. So it's going to come down to the fact as to whether or not producing this series is financially feasible for the Disney Corporation, considering they want to make as much money as they can from theme parks, from the movies. I mean, everybody who has been paying attention to the entertainment aspect has been seeing what's been going on with Scarlett Johansson and Disney, how they're no longer working together after the Black Widow fiasco. So it's all up to Disney as to whether or not they want to continue this series beyond season 2, up to season 4 or 5. I would love to see this series go 5, but again, that's up to the money hungry executives at Disney. So that's going to conclude my reaction review to Kamino Lost, the 16th episode of season 1 of The Bad Batch. Hope you all have yourselves a great evening. The weekend is here. Have fun. Enjoy yourselves. If you're living in an area where it's hot, stay cool. And until next time, I will see you all later. Take care. And once again, really appreciate all of you. Thank you.